Hey everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host for Sales and Cigars. Today we got a great guest, Jack Witte from Corrective Asphalt Materials. Jack's a client, been a client for a couple of years. I help him with managing his sales team. Gotten to know Jack really well. Gotten to know his whole team really well, and it's a fun conversation about a Jack's a bit of an anomaly in that he was educated and trained as an engineer. He sort of grew up in this business that he has. So he's an engineer, but he had a lot of success in sales, and he's not your typical engineer person because he's good at talking with people. He cares about people. He's got empathy for people. And that's one of the reasons why he was successful. So we talk about his philosophy around sales and how the hat being that he wears now is an ownership thing. But he still likes to have a hand in sales. He's still got a couple of customers that he sees. Right. So we talk about that. Jack's also kind of different than most engineers because he likes to get up on the stage and do a little comedy. So we talk a little bit about that. And we talk a little cigars. So I'm going to finish my Padron 4000 and go grab a cocktail and a cigar, strap in, and get ready for a great conversation with Jack Witte. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Jack, appreciate you taking some time to jump on the podcast with me. Thank you.
Thanks.
So
looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've been sort of looking forward to it. You were a hard guy to wrangle, according to my assistant. So try working with him. It's even harder to wrangle him.
Yeah.
So full disclosure, Jack Witte is senior partner, managing partner at Corrective Asphalt Materials in Southern Illinois, Minnesota. Your territory goes from the Canadian border of Minnesota down to scary parts of Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi, right?
Yep.
So you want to give a quick little what the hell Corrective Asphalt Materials does without getting too engineering geeky on me?
Yeah. So basically, we're an asphalt preservation company that seals asphalt. That's the simplest way I can put it. And we treat mostly municipal and county roads. We don't do a lot of commercial work, but we're a proprietary type product that we apply directly to the pavement and help extend life to asphalt surfaces.
So if there's anybody listening from Oakland County, where I live, the road in front of my house, Milford Road, was re-asphalted 2 years ago, and they are re-asphalting it as we speak, right? And part of that reason is they do a shitty job of laying down the asphalt. Maybe they don't have Jack's guys come in and put some preservation materials on top of it, and they allow huge trucks to drive up and down the street at 60 miles an hour whenever they want to. So
there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of jump in. It's fun to interview somebody that you know pretty well. But you've been in the business since you got out of college, and you know the business backwards and forwards. You know the technical side of it, the chemicals and the maltings and all that. But you started out in sales. Spent a good chunk of your career in sales. So as a business owner, wearing the business owner hat, how do you look at the sales organization? What do you see that the challenges and the friction points from when you used to do it to like trying to run the business now and managing sales? What do you see those challenges being?
Well, I think there's a couple different challenges. One being that I'm an engineer, we typically like to do things our way. So just the challenge of letting people do their sales type method was challenging. You're used to being black and white and it's built this way. And there's other ways to get to the end of the line, other ways to reach the goal. And your way is not always the only way to do things.
So
learning that was a challenge.
Being flexible about the approach, and as long as people are being ethical and the outcomes are good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, starting to focus more on the outcomes, help guiding them in a direction you think is the right direction, and kind of keeping them in that lane. But for example, I take a more technical route. Some of the sales team doesn't. But I think one of the things I learned to do is I've kind of guided the culture on we want to have some teamwork and develop relationships, and we've all agreed on that. And relationships are real important in our business. So that's one common ground we all had, and it made things a little bit easier when they didn't do it exactly how I did it.
So the teamwork aspect of it, sales is kind of is unique in the sense that we want everybody to play nice together in the sandbox. We want each other to the salespeople to call each other, and your people do. They support each other, a lot. And especially the new one, when we brought Jerry on, I mean, he was the other salespeople were really engaged with him and helping him and making him feel comfortable. Is there any other aspect of teamwork that you think is important within to creating that sales culture?
It's getting the team together. I've got some salespeople that are really efficient on their time, so if they're not wanting to, if they don't think it's efficient for their time, like just having a lunch with all the sales team or having a beer with them just to get together, I might have to talk them into doing that. But I think that's an important piece of the teamwork, to get to know everybody, and understand how they work. And because I've learned that there's some, the senior salesperson has been there for a while, and we hire a new person, and they start seeing things done a different way. So they're questioning, why are they doing it this way? So then you got to balance all that. And why are they doing it this way when I'm doing it this way? And I got to pull them back in and remember, look, there's different ways to do it. We all have a common theme here about the relationships, and we're all helping each other out. So it kind of grounding people. But I like getting people together so they can hang out and get to know each other on just a common good old boy level.
Yeah, you use your quarterly meetings to do that. You take care of business, but there's usually some element of socializing to those, and you don't encourage it to be constant, like business, right? It's more of like just developing that relationship, so sales and operations can, learn how to communicate with each other and realize he's just a guy that's got the same kind of life issues that I have, right?
Yeah.
So building that culture is what you're saying is really important, and that takes time. It can't be forced too, right?
Yeah. I'd say the other thing too, though, is just being on the other side is, trying to be an owner and trying to manage a sales team. I get pulled in so many different directions. So that's a challenge. It's like I want to focus on, the weekly meetings with everybody and where are they at with their goals, and then I'm worried about other employee issues or the technical side, the national market, what's going on in that,
supply chain
problem, the sales supply chain, or one of my sales associates comes to me and says that we have new competition threats up in an area, so I have to dig in and learn about it. And so it's when you're signing the paychecks, there's just a whole different realm of worries that you get, and then worrying about if the sales team is meeting their weekly goals kind of goes to the wayside.
Right. Well, there's a certain level of trust that you have to develop, and the salespeople have to demonstrate it and have to earn your trust. And you got to believe that they're focusing and making moves in the right directions. But I mean, that becomes part of the culture. Like if you're creating accountabilities and you're looking at the growth model that you have in place, where you want new new municipalities to come on board. You want them to be doing, in your case, you do demos. You're generous with your demos. Um, and you get your customers, those you leverage those relationships to really help the other municipalities see the value in what it is that you do. It's not being forced. Nobody sounds like a used car salesman. That it's all about that relationship and creating value and ROI. It's refreshing.
I mean, our typical sales cycle is anywhere from a year to 2 years before we get any type of paid project. So trying to figure out how to shorten that is a challenge.
I think you have. I think you're in that middle of the 1 year to 2 year, right?
We've shortened it.
The salespeople are really starting to understand the relationship piece, but you also have to be able to say, look at the freaking road. You can see the difference here, right? And so it's but I think everything flows out of culture, out of the sales culture, and I think there's a different culture that's a subset of a company culture, where because we need to be competitive as a salesperson, right? We always want somebody nipping at the heels of the top salesperson, and we want that person to be, striving to keep their position, and then the new people to be, try to just gain ground. So I think that there's that competitiveness, but you go back to your teamwork within the relationships of each other. I mean, I know the team; they all care about each other, and they want to. They don't look at it as a zero-sum game, right? Because their territories are their territories, and they like, hey, I experienced this in my situation. Is that like what you're experiencing? Yeah. Okay. Well, here's what I did. Here's what it felt like. Here's what happened. And there's a lot of that open, free sharing. I think it's you're having success with that.
Well, a lot of that has to do with you too.
Well, I have a hand, but I really think that the drivers of a culture, like I can help with the performance piece and the accountability piece, but the rest of it stems from the top. And if you have the leader that wants to grow, but then doesn't want to hold people to a standard, that's hard to do with salespeople, because we're a lot like children, right? We're going to get away with what mom and dad let us get away with. So we talked a little bit about you being an engineer, and did that get in the way, you think, or did it help you
in sales? I think there's a little bit of both. I think I got lucky, though, in the sense that it probably, if I was in another industry, it may have hurt a little bit more than it helped. But in my industry, I'm dealing with all engineers to begin with, so I know how they think, which could hurt me. But I go in with a preconceived notion of what they're going to say. But I think it helped me in the fact that I knew what to show them. I know what they're thinking. I could drill into what kind of exactly here's the black and white of it, which they like to see. Right. What I had to learn more too is to kind of be not salesist too, and ask more questions and dig in and learn. I knew it's kind of like maybe a golf swing. Like you kind of know how to do it, but it takes a while how to put everything together.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, because
you're supposed to hit your hips and keep your arms straight and look and all that stuff, and it's like,
and you got to do it all in the right order.
Yeah, right? And then it finally clicks.
And when it does, just like golf, You just
Yeah.
need that one shot on the golf course. You may have
Yeah.
hit a bunch of crappy ones, but that one is what you're going to remember to get you to your next 18, right? And that's
Yeah.
going to get you back to the range. It's going to get you back to your pro.
Yeah.
I hit the 7-iron so pure on the ninth hole, and it just right, and it just the path.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with sales.
Yeah.
Where that's where you're heading is being able to know the technical part of it. Um,
Hmm.
I think can be a real advantage as long as we're not so eager to dump all of that at the feet of that prospect.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a little luck too. Like I said, I mean, a lot of the people I deal with are engineers. So I never got my P license, but I have a civil degree, and I put that on my business card. So at least they see that, because I know engineers like to talk to engineers,
Well, I mean, you can,
and there's a little bit of sense of comfort in
yeah,
it.
because you guys think similarly. I remember when I
Yeah.
first started talking to engineers, I had to sell them a technical product, right? And I
Yeah.
thought they were the smartest guys in the world until I
Yeah.
realized they had no idea about my particular product.
Yeah. They act like they
But
do.
they had no clue. So all I had to do was help them, solve problems, and I was able to. But I was intimidated as a
Mhm.
younger salesperson. I was intimidated that I was going to go talk to this big engineer guy, and he was going to know all of the stuff, and he knew a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff that I didn't know or care to know.
Yeah.
Um, but really, all we're doing is solving a problem.
Yeah.
And what
Because we deal. Go ahead.
well, what
Sorry.
you guys do is solve problems that sometimes they don't even realize they have.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a
So there's.
it's a fun thing. So I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I interrupted you, but it's that's a challenge I had, is trying to make them understand that they had a problem, because most of them don't. And we're also dealing with an engineer that if they do this, they're not going to get a bonus. Nobody's really going to give them a praise. They could be status quo and still keep their job.
Right.
So that's a challenge in itself. And then I learned that, they could say that it works, but now I got to sell their boss or their elected officials, and they don't want to approach it because they don't know how to do it. So I got to learn how to help get to the decision makers. Who's really the decision maker? Who's the person behind the scenes stopping this? What's going on? And that's a big challenge I've had for myself, and also when I was overseeing the salespeople, is I wanted them to get down to the core issue. What's the roadblock here? And figuring out what's going on with the decision makers. And we read that book, Baseline Selling, and that helped kind of write the path for everybody. That helped out with that. It's like you can't go from first to home.
You can't cut across first base to third
Yeah.
base, right? You got to go to second, and it's slowing down and getting that information and understanding the decision maker, and then understanding what their criteria is and how they'll know that they've made a good decision. And that was that's part of the fun, though. If you look at it as a detective thing, where you're really starting to figure out who can influence, who can say yes, who can say no. And if you like this, Mr. Engineer, and you think this makes sense and it'll save you money and you won't have to rip up the roads and the community will experience, longer life cycle of your asphalt, how do I help you tell that story to the other people who care about this? And that's the part that that's what we've been working on with a couple of salespeople, that getting that to that next level, and and being an asset to that person.
Yeah.
Sell them on the idea and get them to, and then help them help themselves.
It can be frustrating though.
Yes.
You know what they're thinking, their mentality. And I've dealt with them for 20 years and went to school with them, and it's like, it's like Egon on Ghostbusters. Stop that.
That's
Like, what do we do? Immediately breaks out the computer. No, stop that.
that's a good segue for where I wanted to go. There's something different about you because, like I said before, engineer who's had success in sales, creates relationships, sees all that, but you also have a desire to be on stage and be funny. And that I remember when we were driving in your truck, we went into. You told me that as we were in the drive through at Starbucks.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? So can you talk a little bit about why that is something that you're and I respect it. I appreciate it. I love stand up. When I lived in New York, I was at the comic strip like 2 or 3 times a month, listening to people like Seinfeld before he was a household name.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of balls to get up there and do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just, when I was in college, I DJ'd a lot and I was always on the microphone. It's probably why I can't run for Senate right now. But, one of my fraternity brothers was like, you got to go up and do stand-up comedy. And I'm like, I can't do that. And he kept pressuring me. And finally, after a year or two of it, I finally went to the Funny Bone here in St. Louis and signed up, and they let me in for open mic night. And I got a few laughs, but I had about 15 people, my friends there. And it was just such a high to be on stage. It was really cool to get a bunch of strangers to laugh. It's like getting, I don't know, a bunch of strangers to buy your product. There's a coolness, there's a high to that. Yeah, and I like the art of public speaking. It was a challenge for me. And so I kind of just went up on stage and I probably did it about 6 to 8 times maybe.
Oh.
The only reason why they really put me on was because I would always bring 20 people, and there was 20 people paying money.
Covered drinks. Your friends, if I recall correctly, are not afraid to have a cocktail or two.
Not afraid to put a nice bar tab on the scene, but the one time I was there was I had gone enough that they started to know me, and I had a couple good bits. A couple of them I can't talk about on here, but I was in line. There was a talent scout there, and they had. You ever remember the show Last Comic Standing? Sure. They had 3 or 4 of the finalists on Last Comic Standing were in the lineup with me.
Oh, cool.
And they put me at the end, mostly because I had a bunch of people there. But I had a solid 3 minutes, which, people were laughing. Sure. And not like they would to Seinfeld, but anyhow, they didn't give me the signal to get off. And I'm like, uh-oh, I thought I was done. Yeah. So I started coming up with jibber jabber and completely bombed it. And somebody heckled me like, go back to your old jokes. I'm like, all right, that's my time. I'm gone. And I walked down to the guys. I'm like, hey, what happened there? He's like, well, they tested me. They wanted to see what I had. And I failed the test, see if I could do it. Now I think I could. I haven't gone on in several years.
Well, but that's the progression, right? You get 3 minutes, you get 5 minutes, and they ask you to do 10, and then you do 20, right? And then you middle, and then you headline, right? I mean, it's a progression, and it takes time to build that material. Some of it's going to be good, some of it's going to be great, some of it sucks.
Yeah. It's like Hallmark.
Hallmark.
My next bit is on Hallmark movies. Like every woman loves Hallmark movies. It's like I'm probably the guy from New York that she's wanting to leave. I'm not the guy from her hometown and somewhere in Colorado that already has snow on the ground. It looks like he's Fabio and just whittles wood figurines for a living.
You're the guy that causes the trouble in the relationship.
Yeah. I'm the guy back in New York trying to make a damn living. trying to make everything work.
What's funny is that those Hallmark movies, like those make money.
Oh, I know.
I mean, there's people that
I know.
have earned quite a career off of that. So Jack, this is sales and cigars. So there's a sort of a standard here where we, I asked the question here at the end is, do you have a relationship with cigars in terms of business or personal? And I'm just curious as to where you sit on that.
Yeah, my wife doesn't like them too much after I come home, but my uncle is a big cigar smoker, and I like to sit down with him at fishing tournaments and just drink a cocktail, some whiskey or scotch, and smoke a cigar. I've gotten a few Cubans lately, and I've enjoyed those. And I find it relaxing to sit out by myself or with just a couple people and just listen to some tunes and smoke the cigar. It's relaxing. Yeah. My coolest story though was in 1999 on my high school senior trip. We were sitting in our hotel. Somebody went and bought Cubans, and we thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And there's three of us. We're just graduated high school. We're sitting on a balcony, beachside of a hotel, smoking Cuban cigars, and we thought we were the coolest people in the world at that point.
You might have been the coolest people in the building at that point.
Yeah,
that's a good story.
Yeah,
Cuban cigars have it's a real difference. It's not just like there's something about their dirt, something about their air, that you can. Even my wife, we'll go for walks in the park, and I'll always take my cigar along for the walk. And I was smoking a nice Cuban cigar a few years ago, and she's like, "That's not what you normally smoke. What is that?" And I'm like, "Why?" And because I thought she was going to go to smoking a $40 cigar, but she said it smelled like the cigars that her grandfather smoked when she went to visit him in Germany.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, well, in Germany, Cubans are legal and they're not as expensive.
Yeah.
So we did a little research, and he smoked a Cuban cigar, same brand, all the time, and that's what they would do. They would take the kids out into the woods, go for a walk, and he would be there with his stick and a cigar, and the kids would be moving around. And that smell, she could tell the difference between, a Padron 4000 and a Bolivar. I just thought that was interesting. So,
well, the best Cuban story is from Seinfeld. When Kramer brought the real Cubans back,
right?
But they were Dominicans disguised as Cubans.
They couldn't.
He told his investor they're straight from Castro. He's like, no, Frank Castro, his brother. Right. It's like his brother was named Frank.
And that's the one where they're trying to roll crepes, right?
Yeah, the Vandalay crepes.
Yeah, industry. All right, Jack, I appreciate you taking the time talking about this. Some good stories. I just want to give you a heads up. There's some talk within the sales organization that you're going to get on stage at your next quarterly meeting. So start working on that 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll probably have to do that.
Appreciate it. Thanks.